You can make a difference. By becoming a supporter of our channel, you not only help us thrive, but also become an active part of our community. The link to join us is in the description. What do we need to be happy? We talk all the time about this so-called happiness. We constantly follow people in their attempts to be happy. Our social networks, right? So many people posting what makes them happy and even lying about what makes us happy. What makes us happy? What makes us fulfilled? And from these questions, we begin to debunk because we lie to ourselves. How many times do I meet people and recognize this in myself? A deceitful structure around fulfillment. We pretend to be fulfilled. We pretend to know what should be done. Often we stay on the surface of things, of situations, and don't even have the courage to touch what really needs to be touched to make our lives better. We have so many pursuits. Sometimes you try to be happy through your work. You work hard because you want to achieve something that makes you happy. You date. You try to be happy through this relationship, or you're already married. You try to be happy in this marriage. This life is so short, isn't it? So that we waste the opportunity to be fulfilled, happy men and women. Because that is God's desire for us. Conversion is this. It is to identify if in the structure of your life today, there is something that is an obstacle to your human fulfillment. So when I look at the structure of my life, at what today I need to renounce, I am seeing a reality that is favorable to my growth. I need to identify what today in the structure of my life is representing an obstacle to my fulfillment. It might be that you identify a friendship, for example, a pseudo-friendship, a false friendship, a camaraderie that has been an obstacle to your spiritual, emotional growth. So we need to constantly articulate the reality that surrounds us. I like to call this our environments. And from these environments, we seek, honestly, to be in the place we should really be. I think every human being, even if not very conscious of this, is always trying to be happy, even when they make mistakes. Even when we make mistakes, we are somehow trying to be happy. You might be under the influence of someone who does not wish you well, who is addicting you to something that destroys you, or who is taking you out of a context of fidelity to yourself. Yes, we can often become addicted to people who do us harm. And suddenly, the enemy starts undermining our courage, our willingness, and we stray from the path that God wants for us. I repeat that it is a path of fulfillment, a path of happiness. God does not want our suffering. We suffer because we are human. It is part of our condition, but it is very petty to think that God is sending those sufferings to us. No, He doesn't need to send them. Sufferings are there in the path of everyone who wants to live well. Just as He also cannot rid us of these sufferings, because they are part of life. It is part of life to suffer. What He assures us is His presence. So, it requires a lot of intellectual honesty. We are talking here about putting intelligence to work. What today, in the structure of my life, is an obstacle to my human fulfillment. You've heard me talk here about human fulfillment, which is precisely this adaptation that we make of everything we can and cannot do. Yes, because a fulfilled human being is one who has already acknowledged everything they can and cannot do. And from this can and cannot, a space of satisfaction is created. It is the satisfaction of being who you are, of doing what you do, of working at what you work, of studying what you study, of living with whom you live. And we cannot always, within this fulfillment, do only what pleases us. Personally, I like to think that God is always favorable, that my experience with the Lord is always favorable to me. Never, never, never could I understand that my experience with God could be an obstacle to my human fulfillment. God wants my best. And a long time ago, I started removing from myself, some misguided understandings that God wanted my suffering, for example. God has no interest in making you an unhappy person. Unhappiness is not a project of God for our lives. That's why in the project He has for each of us, He never removes the obstacles, because in the obstacles, we find the strength to achieve what we so desire. Yes, we need to overcome daily the obstacles that prevent us from living this happiness, this human fulfillment. But the problem is when we do not know when we do not have clarity about what really makes us happy. I like to understand happiness with a bit more depth. It might be that the word happiness is very empty of meanings. It might be that it has become very empty in our days. We grow a lot when we are challenged, much more than when we are flattered, when we accept the provocation of life itself. Do you know how life provokes us? With our discomfort. That's why it's so dangerous to take medicine for sadness, unless you have been diagnosed with chemical depression. And then, my people, it's never too late for us to be able to change the structure of our life, to change directions. Just as Jesus was not afraid to change the lives of those who passed by him. Because Jesus knew all of this much more deeply than we know today. How many people get cured when they quit a job, for example, when they give up that job to earn less but work at something they love? How many people end their conflict when they end a relationship? But they suffer. At least they are suffering to heal. Yes, but usually when sadness comes and we numb it with a pill, we miss the happy opportunity to discover what bothered us, and then we don't change what bothers us. You just keep taking pills for your sadness, and that's why it doesn't get resolved. You just keep pushing the conflict forward, when in fact what would solve it and eliminate the need for the pill is confrontation, a change of pieces on the board. How many people resolve their sadness, their anguish, when they are able to put people in the right places? When you shield your heart so that it is not the target of someone else's lack of love? How many people improve, heal, when they are able to drop out of college and say, "This is not what I want for myself"? I remember once I met a girl who was studying to please her mother, and she told me that. She had the courage to say. I asked her, "What do you study?" She said, "Architecture." And, "Do you like architecture?" She said, "No. I'm doing it because my mother wants me to." I found that very cruel. Doing the opposite of what you intend to please your mother. Something is wrong in that relationship. You know, today I was talking at home, and we were discussing an event involving someone we love, very much a difficulty, a suffering they went through, a loss, and I was just talking about how important it is, how much of a difference it makes in our lives when we, even when we're suffering, even when we are hurt by events, don't allow the victim mentality to take root within us. Because the victim mentality, the one that conditions us, to think, "Oh, poor me, I didn't deserve what happened to me." That spirit, it's very diabolical within us because it breaks our capacity for recovery. Every time I think life has been unfair to me, every time I think life owes me something, I naturally paralyze my strengths and anything that could lead me forward. And sometimes we are very cruel to ourselves like that. We feed for years and years and years without realizing that we are feeding this victim spirit. Life owes us nothing. No. Life is always beautiful if we perceive it as such. If we're willing to cast our eyes on what still remains. Okay, we lost. And what can we do to recover even a little more than what we lost? Sometimes in some situations that we think were a loss, it was actually a blessing. Because before I used to get really annoyed, by anything. Sometimes I'd get annoyed about a flight that went wrong. Not today. I've been trying to replace the logic of what annoyed me with this. So okay, it didn't happen because I wasn't supposed to go. So I'll make the most of this moment I have here and see what good I can extract from it. And when we start to abandon this spirit that's sometimes diabolical, then why is it diabolical? Because it disrupts the harmony within us. So many times I have diabolical feelings. If I look at my life and see myself as a poor victim, poor me, this self-pity, that's diabolical. It's a diabolical feeling. What I need to do is roll up my sleeves and get to work on what I can still do, and even recognize the part I play in what doesn't go right. Because sometimes it's a sequence of mistakes. It went wrong here, it went wrong there, and I don't have the courage to start looking at how I've been doing things. Sometimes it's a disharmony that precedes all other mistakes. A disharmony that I'm often used to and no longer perceive its effects on me. So, a good way for us to heal our behavior, what is often determinate in us, our way of being. I need to heal my way of being. It's me realizing the beauty of life. Yes, life is beautiful. Rid myself of victimhood and go fight. Go seek my share. There's so much to live, my friends. Visit a hospital and you'll see. When a person faces the limit, illness is like that, right? It strips us of all the excesses. We become very real. Find someone who is living the destitution that illness shows, and you'll see a real human being. Because sometimes when we're very healthy, very full of opportunities, we hide, we pretend. But illness doesn't. It takes everything from us. It takes everything that could seem like a hiding place for us, everything that could function as a hiding place. In fact, I keep identifying how, when a person experiences maturation, how they discard these hiding places throughout life. And it's so good to live with these people who no longer need hiding places. Maturity does that to us. We discard the hiding places that were once so fundamental for us to be who we wanted to be. And then the passage of time makes it so that those who are truly interested in us stay by our side, not just in our shells. Because success is a shell. Sometimes people approach you because they know you're someone who succeeded in your field. So it's good to be seen with you. It's good to take a photo with you. It's good to show others that they're close to you, that they're your friend. But in reality, they're not interested in who you are. They're interested in the shell you have, which helps them have another shell, which might be interesting. Today, we live in this time where we demonstrate ourselves so much, show ourselves so much. This can become a neurosis because you end up seeking people not to truly meet them, but to feed your need to document and have material to post later. So when we meet and don't feel the need to publicize what we've experienced, it's because we truly appreciate what we've experienced. I'm not saying publishing is a problem. I'm saying that often, in the excess of publication, we're hiding our need to instrumentalize the other, to just enjoy the shell that is the other. Success is an example. But money, too. How many people approach others because of what they can materially offer them? Which is also nonsense, because it could be the most comfortable situation in the world. Personally, I can't stand it if my soul isn't feeling good. Oh, that boat is wonderful. We're going to spend a week there. God forbid a wonderful boat with people we don't identify with. What might seem like paradise to me is hell. Oh, but we're going on a beautiful trip. All expenses paid. And what do I pay to be there emotionally? And there are people who subject themselves to this. They spent the weekend just read here to show off, just to maintain their own shell and that of others. And then the emptiness of the heart naturally happens. We become hollow inside because life is so outward, and so little inward, that we end up losing our own inner joy. So overcoming all this so that life is worth it requires daily reflection, requires a daily exercise of identifying where are we really exercising ourselves. I'm talking about myself too, of course, but I'm sure you, in different instances, experience the same conflict I do. You also notice the social hollowness, the anthropological hollowness all around you, or even within you, because that has been a characteristic of our times. We are increasingly empty. We are disinclined towards content. We are very fond of brief speeches. And with that, we are causing a terrible human loss. We're empty, we're foolish, we're superficial, we're trivial. And this triviality, this superficiality, has caused a terrible social loss. And that's why we need to keep emphasizing this. If we don't change the way we educate our children, instilling values in them from an early age, we shouldn't expect change. If I skip the toll booth to avoid paying, and if I'm enjoying it like everyone else who pays, I have no right to open my mouth to talk about corruption in Brasilia. If I'm not honest in my working relationship with my employee, if I deprive him of his rights, if I'm not fair to those who work with me in compensation, I have no right to speak. Of the thieves who loot stores, who feel entitled to break everything. So it's a chain. I don't want to be left out of this reflection. You know why? Because the hollow world is also in me. God forbid I keep making moralistic speeches, putting myself outside of history. No. I also have to manage the dangers of frivolity daily. Or do you think I'm immune? I'm not. I reflect all the time on how I choose to be who I am, to be who I can be, And if we don't rid ourselves of the complacency that makes us crazy, foolish, superficial, and unable to transform realities, we lose the joy of life. Because what's good, what makes us feel alive, is precisely when we realize that we contribute to a process. And over time, we start giving up wanting to change the world, When we're younger, we have all those dreams. That thing, I'm going to be a revolutionary. Until the day you discover that you can't change much. Okay, but then where can I? And you start acting in the space that suits you. For example, by pulling people out of this victim mentality, I can't maintain the victims. That poor person, eternally pitiful, who doesn't even want to work, who we have to carry on our backs forever. I'm not obligated. Oh, but Father, what about charity? Charity, my daughter, is opening the eyes of the other so that they go get their share. Sometimes charity is putting the other in their place. Enough. Enough. I'm not your automatic debit. How many of us within our homes represent this? We stopped being people a long time ago. The other only sees us as an automatic debit. There's nothing crueler than that. You even lose the pleasure of helping because the other only sees you as an ATM where they go, enter a PIN, and take what they want from you. Sometimes we maintain these relationships because we lack the courage to break the victimhood that is within us, that is in the other. I learned a lot of this from life. Sometimes the victim is maintained by me, who insist on helping, and don't realize that sometimes the best way to help is to wake them up, say no once in a while, so that they start living again. This life is too beautiful to be wasted with dishonesty, or for me to be forever a poor victim, always justified by the difficult past I had. There are so many stories inside me that would give me the right to say, wow, come on, Father Fabio, poor thing, what a difficult life. No, I don't want that, no. What I want is to recruit daily what life can offer me, even if it's just a little thread. I'll hold on to it. Life I want to conquer through hard work, because I already have God's grace. Oh, but if I don't do the hard work, grace doesn't act. Grace doesn't even produce effects on me if I don't put in the hard work. That's how it works. Want an easy life? Sit on a coconut pudding. A good portion of our disappointments stem from the understanding that people should act towards us exactly as we act towards them. We need to lose that pretension. People are governed by other commands, different from ours. The secret is to continue offering the best of ourselves to others, even if it's not always reciprocal. I know this is a commonplace. You've probably thought about it a lot. But every now and then, it's good to shed light on what is often obscure to us, despite knowing it's there. Because sometimes knowing isn't enough. Sometimes we need to continually renew this within ourselves. Why do we keep getting frustrated with people? Because they didn't meet our expectations. Because deep down, even though we know others are not obligated to be as we want them to be, we nurture this illusion. We carry this pretension. People are who they are. Sometimes they'll align perfectly with us. Sometimes they'll err, just as we also succeed and fail with others. What we can do is minimize these expectations within ourselves. Are you getting to know someone? Do everything you can to not idealize that person. Make every effort. Make the effort not to place on them expectations that have much more to do with you than with them. Have the simplicity and honesty to look at yourself, to look at others through the lens of reality. People are good. People are bad. People succeed. People fail. Just like you and I are also good, bad, successful, and flawed. We need simplicity in the way we look at things, to minimize as much as possible the expectations we have so that our encounters are fruitful, more real. Because others definitely aren't obligated to be as we would like. I struggle a lot with rejection. I have an immense need to please people, even those who despise me. What's the reason for that? It's funny because sometimes when we identify this within ourselves, You feel like you're trying too hard to please, when in reality, it's an insecurity that sometimes pushes the other further away. It's like when you're trying to be too nice, when you want to be too present in someone's life. It's sometimes the exaggeration of being. The best way to control this is first to realize that there's a measure to how much you should be in someone else's life. So you first seek the satisfaction of being who you are. Pleasing others is a consequence, and you being in someone else's life within a measure that is neither too little nor too much. I don't know if you're familiar with that text by Mario Quintana, the Quindim at the Gate. They say he loved Quindim, and he had a lady who was passionate about his work, but she never wanted to meet him. She was his neighbor, but she preserved Mario Quintana's privacy a lot. She saw him from afar, knew he was the great poet she read. So what did she do? She found out about his taste for Quindim, and she started leaving Quindims at the gate. And on the first one, she left. She wrote, "I leave Quindims, but not to burden you with my presence. I don't want to burden you with my presence." And I find that interesting when someone discovers there's a personal satisfaction in liking someone, but at the same time, they don't want to burden them with their presence. They don't want to be excessive in someone else's life. And sometimes, out of insecurity, I still don't have the confidence in who I am. I go to the meeting, I go to the encounter caring too much, and all of this ends up being a reason to push away instead of bringing closer. It's the gift of lightness. You notice how affectionate a person is because they are light, they don't demand things, they understand you just the way you are. It's so cool that there are people who have this thing of throwing happiness onto you, in a sense. If you don't do what they imagine you should do, it seems like the problem is yours. And it's not. I mean, each one, it's not my fault, right? You want to attribute a failure, a success to another person, right? Exactly. And it's not fair, right? It's not fair. And especially when you realize you projected too much of what you expected from the other person. That's also extremely disastrous. I really like something that it's very Aristotelian, but it's the concept of the uselessness of friendship. Friendship is beautiful because it's useless. Not in the ugly sense of the word useless, but in the sense that they are complete people with all their imperfections, and they choose to be part of each other's lives. One helps the other, not out of utility. When I'm friends with someone out of utility, I'm not really friends with them. I'm their friend because you can help me with this and that. I'm your friend because you have a college degree and I want to get a job. I'm your friend because you own a company and can do something for me. I'm your friend because you have a boat and I like sailing. So I'm not your friend. I'm your friend because I'm your friend. The things you provide me with, right? Many times, right? The person is interested in what the other person provides. Sometimes, because you have a certain recognition, people want to be on your side, right? And then it's sad because in moments, sometimes but you end up alone, isolated. Today I saw something that I'm going to say here. I have deep admiration for Father Julio Lancelotti. You do too, right? And Father Julio, so I learned to admire more and more for seeing him take care of homeless people. And so then I see that the homeless people know him by name, ask for his blessing. So it's a sign that he stays there, that he stays with them, that he takes care. It's not marketing, right? So Father Julio said, look, Celita, I learned to love Father Fabio because in the most difficult moments of my life, when people judged me in a hasty way, when people didn't understand me, I watched his show. And I looked and I felt that God spoke to my heart through him, through his priestly life, and I became more priestly, more like a priest, right? That's so beautiful, right? And the affectionate way that the Lord treated, I'll throw confetti at you. But one of the things I find most beautiful about your way of speaking about the Word of God is when you talk about that sinful woman who knew she was going to die, who was condemned, and that Jesus, in that magnificent way, looked deep into her eyes, didn't challenge the law, didn't say anything, just gave a detail of love. Let him who is without sin cast the first stone. That's beautiful. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey at Path of Faith. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content like this.